Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you. Glad you're joining us here on this, what in Sacramento is a very foggy and kind of dreary um, Tuesday afternoon. I think most of the state actually is experiencing this. If you actually have sunshine in your neck of the woods right now, maybe give us a thumbs up because maybe we can live vicariously through you. It has been a while in Sacramento since we've seen that yellow shiny ball in the sky. So anyway. I'm seeing some thumbs up. That's great. You must be down in Southern California or along the coast somewhere, but glad you're here. My name is Brett Malakote. I'm the Associate Superintendent at the Sacramento County Office of Ed. And as always, we're just so thankful that we were talking about it actually kind of in the green room, as Patrick said it, as we were kind of preparing, just how honored we are at how folks just continue to show up for one another in this space. It really is it's special that we've created a community like this, and we certainly don't take it for granted. I can say I'll speak for myself. I learn as much in these meetings just for my own way of thinking about implementation and support of this work. As probably you do. Maybe I learn more. I don't know, but it's certainly a great community. So thanks for continuing to show up for one another. It's fantastic. Um, I think we can go on to the next slide as we do. We're really excited. We've got some great information that's coming today from Camden and Vera at the Solano County Office of Ed. As Patrick was kind of filling me in on the presentation today, feels like there's kind of a theme that's emerging from the last couple of meetings, this idea of going slow to go fast, this idea of kind of quality in the work that we do. And let's take a moment to celebrate one of our colleagues in here. Liz Gomez finished the California International Marathon on Sunday. Woohoo, Liz. And I heard a lot about her workouts and some of the things that are going on. Maybe this is kind of maybe it's a nice analogy, like a marathon, right? Rather than a 100-meter sprint, we really are. We're kind of in it for the marathon, and the quality of the workouts and the quality of the work that we do leading up to what we see down the road is, of course, really, really important. But I had to brag on Liz for a minute and had to find a way to kind of weave that in there. But congratulations, Liz, on that. Let's go ahead and continue to go through the slides here. Here's our mission, vision, and our desired outcomes. Maybe we'll take a minute just to read our vision statement for today. I try to pick out maybe just one of these areas instead of trying to highlight them all at every meeting. But here's our vision. We envision a future where every child and youth in California is celebrated, nurtured, and supported by caring adults at home and at school. And when I think about that vision, I do think about the need to go slow, to go fast, that idea of quality, like those things, a vision like this does not happen overnight. It takes time, it takes commitment, it takes collaboration and coordination, and I feel like we're kind of on our way to that. So just excited about each of these, the mission, vision, and outcomes, and we'll let you kind of continue to check those out, and we'll highlight different parts as we continue down these meetings. Let's go ahead and keep going. There we go. All right. Objectives and agenda for today. Here's our objectives. These remain pretty consistent from meeting to meeting, as you'll see. We want to reflect on the work to date and envision next steps to enhance school-linked behavioral health services. Again, we're excited about Solano and helping us think through that today. We're going to empower community voices. That's for the spotlights, the highlights that we have at each meeting, and in the spaces both before and after where we're all getting together and trying to figure this thing out. The third one, engage in activities to foster collaboration and learning. Number four, provide insight on technical assistance and ways to support administration of the capacity grant. So this really is, we hope anyway, that this meeting space that is ongoing is about specific help that's happening, that's where we're responding to things that are happening in real time and thinking about kind of the long-term future as well. Our agenda today, we have a welcome, which will be happening in just a minute. We have our inclusive welcome, and then we get right into peer learning and discussion again, which will be led by Camden and Vera today. Let's go ahead and keep going. Housekeeping, you probably saw it as you came in, but we do record these meetings. We think that's important so that if folks are not able to attend or if you want to go back and review a particular piece of the meeting, that's available to you. And then we'd ask you to just in your name, if you go to those three dots, I think it is in the upper right hand part of your picture, you can rename and just include your county office there, if you would be fantastic. And let's keep going. All right, I am turning it over to Allie from Placer County Office of Ed. She's going to lead us in the inclusive welcome today. Allie, thank you for doing this. And again, everybody, thank you for being here. Looking forward to spending the next couple of hours with you. It's good to be with you.
Okay, thanks, Brent. And your introduction with Liz's marathon, with this project being a marathon, is perfect for our inclusive welcome today. So we can go to the next slide. So we're going to watch a short video about sailing the high seas and how we don't have to sail the high seas alone. So hopefully you'll enjoy this unique friendship that we're about to watch, and then we'll get a chance to chat in breakout rooms as well.
Quand tu es jeune, on te demande qu'est-ce que tu veux faire, mais avant de savoir qu'est-ce que je veux faire, moi j'aimerais bien savoir où j'ai envie d'être.
At only 24 years old, Guérec Soudé is aboard a 30-foot boat sailing around the world completely on his own.
Donc moi ça c'était vraiment un rêve depuis tout petit de faire ce tour du monde. Enfin vraiment qui ne rêve pas de voyager comme ça, de faire plein de pays, de rencontrer plein de personnes, et ouais j'aime ça. J'ai quand même accumulé quelques milles en distance, c'est entre 15 et 20 000.
He left his home in France 2.5 years ago to begin his journey.
Je suis arrivé d'abord en Espagne, après j'ai fait le Portugal, j'ai longé les côtes africaines, et là je suis arrivé aux Caraïbes, puis après je suis arrivé au Groenland où je suis resté 1 an. Puis après, j'ai fait ce qu'on appelle le passage du Nord-Ouest. Donc pour partir de l'Atlantique, pour arriver dans le Pacifique par le nord de l'Amérique en fait. Alors le voyage, il va se terminer quand on sera de retour en France. Je suis un peu particulier dans le sens où j'ai beaucoup d'amis, mais j'aime beaucoup me retrouver seul. D'être tout seul, c'est génial quoi, c'est vraiment super.
Although he's been navigating alone, he's found an unlikely companion.
Je suis quand même accompagné de Monique. Je rêvais d'avoir une poule avant même d'avoir mon bateau. Donc je m'étais renseigné auprès d'experts en France. On m'avait dit, impossible, si elle est stressée, elle ne peut pas pondre. Monique, j'ai trouvé aux Canaries. Et premier jour sur le bateau, Momo m'a fait un œuf. Et en 28 jours, elle m'en a pondu 25. Donc autant dire qu'elle est plutôt à l'aise quoi. Avec Monique, nous on est curieux et on voulait savoir comment ça se passe pour avoir notre propre avis. J'aime bien, en fait, me retrouver dans des situations un petit peu critiques et compter que sur moi, et c'est vraiment très intéressant. Cet hivernage, quand t'es pris dans les glaces, tu te demandes ce que tu fais là, quoi, vraiment. T'as qu'une envie, c'est qu'on vienne te chercher. Il y a même des moments, mais moi, je donnerais mon bateau, je payerais toute ma vie pour qu'on me sorte de là, quoi. Et après, le lendemain, eh ben, le soleil est de retour, le vent s'est calmé, Monique a pondu un œuf, et la vie recommence, quoi.
Okay, so maybe that video inspired you to learn French if you've always wanted to do that, or maybe it just reminded you that in this project of building the fee schedule and building great mental health services for youth, that sometimes it's really challenging, and also there's always an opportunity to start again. What golden eggs or whatnot are we going to find today? There's pockets of good work happening even when the seas are rocky. So in breakout rooms, which Emily is organizing for us, you're going to introduce yourselves just briefly because we'll only be in there for about 5 minutes, and just share any insights or reactions to the video. If you want, there's a couple guiding questions here, specifically what resonated with you, or in what ways have you and your team been resilient during the capacity grants and fee schedule development? And then we'll have an opportunity to do a brief share out in the chat when we come back. Okay, everybody, thanks for coming back. Hopefully you got a chance to connect with your colleagues for a minute. And we can go to the next slide now before we wrap up our closure or our welcome here. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing one word or phrase from your conversations in the chat, we'll see what comes in, and I'll share a few out loud. Okay, resilience, inspiring perspective, relationships, hope. All in this together, encouraging. I'm the chicken. I love that. Remember, the sun will shine again. commitment, sustainability. All right. Well, thanks for sharing those, everybody. Oh, what came first, the chicken or the egg? The eternal question, Brent. Love it. All right. I'm going to give it over to Patrick now. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Allie. That was so wonderful, so amazing. Really appreciate the inclusive welcome. Really appreciate the breakout rooms and the times for folks to connect in smaller spaces. Our breakout rooms are a great time to connect, but often they're pretty big. So it's nice to kind of have a little bit of a smaller breakout so folks can get a chance to connect and talk to each other. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Great, cool. And as a reminder, we do the inclusive welcome. So Ali will be presenting about the amazing work they're doing in Placer County Office of Education next month in January. So please come next month for Ali's presentation. Really looking forward to that. It'll be sort of like a wrap up of like the blending and braiding series we've been doing around like talking through how in Placer COE, they're really thinking about sustainability and all of their funding sources to really support with all of that. So great. So next slide, please. As a reminder, I am Patrick Shermer. I am a coordinator here at Sacramento County Office of Education with our capacity grants team. And I've been a clinician, I've been a clinical supervisor for years, supported in a lot of different counties over the years, but most recently I've worked in our local program here at Sacramento County Office of Education as a clinician and clinical supervisor. So our agenda for today, we have an amazing presentation from Solano COE. As a reminder, they're part of Cohort 1. So they've been doing this work for a while, and we're doing student behavioral health services before the fee schedule even existed. So they brought a lot of that experience that they had into the cohort model, into the fee schedule. So Solano will be presenting about their student behavioral health services and really focusing as well on the fee schedule piece and how they've been implementing it with their LEAs. After that, we'll have a break. And then when we come back from break, we're going to do our breakout rooms. And I put this in the program updates, but in case you didn't get a chance to read those, today it's going to be a little different. We're going to split up our breakout rooms into two. So usually our breakout rooms are 40 minutes, and we've gotten some feedback from folks that like they really often want to go to multiple breakout rooms, and it's hard to choose because there's multiple topics they're really interested in. So we thought this time we would mix it up and try something a little different. So we're going to split a breakout room into two. So at the 20-minute mark, the facilitator of your room is kind of going to give you a heads up and say like, hey, if any folks want to leave and go to another breakout room, now's the time. You could stay in that breakout room if you really are digging that discussion and want to just keep diving deeper into it. Feel free to stay in it for the second half. But if you want, that would be a great time for you to move to a different room. As a heads up, you won't be going back to the main room. It's something you'll have to navigate yourself. You can kind of just go into the breakout room tab and just choose a different room at that 20-minute mark. So we'll remind you again of that as well as we come back from the break, but just wanted to give that framing ahead as well. And then after our breakout rooms, we'll come back to kind of share out what learnings came out of those breakout rooms. We'll have time for feedback to hear from all of you to continue to improve our COPs, and then we'll have an intentional closure. All right, next slide, please. So, yeah, without further ado, I just want to say I have the real pleasure of introducing all of you to Solano Office of Education, if you haven't had the chance to meet or talk with Camden or Vera yet. I myself worked with a CBO in Solano for 2 years and worked closely with Camden while at that CBO. And the piece that really sticks out for me with the partnership with Camden was like the real emphasis on like culturally affirming care. And that was something we did a training called Culturally Sensitive Clinical Supervision for a year and a half that I was connected with some of the folks at Solano County Office of Education. And it truly redefined how I did my work, particularly as a white male, and supporting a lot of the communities. And that just really felt like such a foundational piece of how I understand Solano to move through the world. And it was deeply inspiring to me and continues to be. So I'm just so excited to uplift the amazing work that they've been doing out there with all of you. So just to plug as a reminder, after the presentation, we'll do a break, but then one of the breakout rooms is a Q&A room. So if you're hearing this and there's like a lot of questions that are coming up for you, don't worry, you'll have a chance to ask the questions after that. And then also they're going to come to our office hours on Friday. So if you have additional questions come up, feel free to come on Friday and ask those then. All right, so with that, Let me find you, Camden, on the list so I can let you. There you are. Now I'll hand it off to you, Camden and Vera.
No, thank you.
You're welcome. Karina, can you stop sharing slides so that Camden can share? Thank you.
Oh, get our share set up. So thank you for the great introduction, Patrick, and everybody for the opportunity for Vera and I to present to you today. So I'm Camden Webb. I'm the Clinical Services Director with Solano County Office of Education. I'll be co-presenting today with Vera Liao, who is our Quality Improvement Coordinator here at SCO. So we'll be going back and forth, but we really wanted to start with a question that I often get when I travel around the state. Where in the world is Solano County? So some consider us part of the Bay Area. Some folks within Solano say they're not part of the Bay Area. That's kind of up for debate. I often say I'm to the right of Napa. That way people back east can kind of envision where we're at. But we're really the spot between Sacramento and the Bay. Highway 80 runs through us, a lot of truck stops. It takes you through um, uh, migrant farmland to urban centers, suburban centers. We really have a little bit of it all throughout Solano. If you want to visit, we do have some landmarks that we're known for. We have the Jelly Belly Factory. You can actually take a tour and see jelly beans getting made, and you get free ones at the end. We have Travis Air Force Base. Our office is actually located within minutes of Travis Air Force Base. There's a lot of airplane activity over us. If beer is your thing, Anheuser-Busch is located in Fairfield. They also do tours. And then we have Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, which has been around for a number of years. You can catch a dolphin show, you can ride coasters. So, a little bit more about us, a little deeper dive into Solano County. So according to U.S. News and World Report, every year we make it into the top 10 of most diverse counties in America. Some years we're number one, some years we're number three. We bounce around, but it's definitely one of our claims to fame that we're most proud of. And looking at the history, so this is actually a picture of Chief Solano. So Solano is named after this chief from the Putland Nation of the Wintun people. So we have a long history in Solano of indigenous ownership of land. Of course, similar to across America, the taking of land and the erasure, and really working at this point in time to heal the community. For us here at Solano County, we actually have an initiative that we call our Cultural Broker Initiative. So we hire clinicians from within our community who have specific experience with serving typically underserved populations with their kind of unique clinical lens. And we actually have an indigenous broker who works for us and does case consultation and training sessions on how to incorporate Native American and indigenous history, lore balancing into the clinical work that we do with our clients. We also have, even in the past, a real strong immigrant farm worker influence. So if you're familiar with the north part of our county, Vacaville, Dixon, there's a lot of farmland. We have the Dixon Mayfair once a year. So historically, though, we actually had a lot of Japanese farmers who owned that land. But during World War II, were put into internment camps. Their land was taken over, and many of them never gained back that they owned. Now we have a strong Latino migrant worker nation population, also in North County. So we serve many of those young people under the purview of SCO. And then, as I said, we have Travis Air Force Base. We used to have Mare Island down in Vallejo. So there's a very strong military workforce, history, and culture just within Solano County. And it's brought a lot of racial and ethnic diversity to the community, and people have really set up roots and stayed in Solano County. So to share a little bit, I think Patrick said that we had a pretty robust clinical program even prior to the start of CYBHI. So our team is about 40 strong if you include our clinical interns. So we have case managers, clinicians, of course, the managerial staff, and the cleric that hold it all together is our backbone. But a few things that we offer, we have a clinical intern training program. So we're MOU'd with over 20 universities throughout the Bay, California, and the US, some of virtual programs. We get students from there. We have a school-based mobile crisis team that many of you have probably heard us speak about in other venues, where any school or any LEA charter school within Solano County who has a student who identifies as suicidal or homicidal during the school day, they call into us. We respond and do the assessment, determine whether we're going to write a 5150 hold or support in a safety plan that day. We have contracts with our juvenile detention facility where we provide in-house therapy, group therapy to that population, as well as we have an on-site community school where we place clinicians. We'll maybe talk a little bit more in depth about that later. We do many clinical training offerings, not for our own team, but for Solano County Behavioral Health, our partners. Pratchett was kind of speaking a little bit about that. With CEUs to kind of entice individuals to come into the space and receive that benefit. We have a federal grant to address resiliency in traumatized communities. So that allows us to really look at communities that have experienced historical and ongoing trauma and grief incidents and lift up healing per their own definition within their community. That's been a really exciting grant to support. Under that, we also are able to do a lot of postvention work. If a young person dies by suicide or a school community is impacted by some major trauma or grief incident, our team comes in and provides some wraparound support to that school community. Lots of social emotional learning supports, PBIS, MTSS, supporting those initiatives. And then a few years ago, it was probably about 3-4 years ago, just recognizing that we were becoming a burgeoning clinical program, we really wanted to build our quality improvement arm to ensure that we were kind of staying in line with legal and ethical standards and always raising the bar for ourselves. And that's when we had the opportunity to bring Vera Liao on board, who I had worked with at Solano County Behavioral Health. I just saw her as a leader in that expertise. And I think somebody have been able to witness that in these meetings. She brings that critical eye. And she'll be speaking more about the QI role and how that's influenced our CYBHI. So based on all of that, when we first heard about the fee schedule and heard about the cohorts, we felt we were in a solid place to join cohort 1. We were excited to do so. We had the clinical services. We are already a Medi-Cal biller through our school-based mobile crisis. We built an EPSDT. So we had that experience. We're probably in a 3rd or 4th rendition of electronic health records. Finally kind of landed on one that met our needs and had the dashboards that could support the work with our supervisors. So we felt like we had a crux and foundation for many of the things that would make us successful in cohort 1. So our initial focus, the community school that we operate, it's about 65 students annually. That seemed like a good place to start. We have a 1.0 FTE clinician that supports that school community. So working with that clinician, supervisor, and the school sites themselves, we kind of followed Michael Lombardo's recommendations about what services are we providing that can fit into that billable structure. Is there time that's not being served for billable things that we could start to build that up so that they do become billable? Really mapped our service provision workflow from the role of the secretary at the front desk, the role of the principal, the role of case managers that come onto site, and how that was all going to flow together. We prepared all of our staff for the billing expectations, which I think many of us know. It is a cultural shift. I think many clinicians come into the work from nonprofits, from county behavioral health land, exhausted with Medi-Cal billing and kind of think, oh, I found some reprieve. And then CYBHI comes along and says, nope, we're all going to do it, but it's for a greater good. And so we really worked on that culture shift with our clinicians, came up with our family communication plan, which we're still finessing to this day. And we did the changes to our electronic health records so that we'd be able to readily bill. I think Vera's going to speak to this, but if not, we do not have a TPA in addition to Caroline. We do the billing in-house. So we're a billing specialist who runs our data, scrubs our data, and does the linking connection through Availity to Caroline. So we really wanted to make sure that our EHR was solid and on board with those processes. So some of the early wins we had last year, of course, getting that first claim submitted and accepted, no errors, that was huge for us. Our first reimbursement check, you get to see a snapshot of it on the next slide. We love the amount and how excited we were to celebrate. We saw an increase in staffing confidence as the year went on, getting over the initial changes to documentation and processes. But as we got our footing, we saw their confidence raise. They felt better in approaching families to lay out what the fee schedule was and answer those questions. Built stronger clinical roots, which I think just happens. You're wanting to speak to that evidence-based practice even better in your notes in the event there were ever to be an audit. So it just helps us to take a closer look at what are we doing when we're in sessions with our young people or providing services to young people and families, so that when we tell the story, it meets musters when we're ever to have somebody come back and look what we had billed for. And it definitely helped inform our TA efforts with our LEAs. We were really focusing on let's get in and figure this out, and who are we communicating with at the state, and what are the bumps, and what's the feedback that we need to give in the office hours, so that this year, as we're stepping into providing the technical assistance to our LEAs, we can empathize and help them navigate. So during our first year, as I said, we had a 1.0 FTE clinician. Our school operates from around 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., so not even necessarily a full day. We had a caseload of 16 students. And so during our first year with all of these bumps, I think we did pretty good at generating nearly $12,000 in revenue. And you can see that check right there for 2412. And betcha we went out for drinks, even though that didn't cover it. All right, I'm handing it over to Vera for a minute.
Thank you, Camden. So last year we have been very busy. Start with our cohort 1, our community school site. You can see earlier the highlights, and also we have EHR implementation last year, and also carry on to the responsibility to do the capacity grant to support our LEA. And it's really unique experience, have all the things happen at the same time. So you can see that's our strategy here. We are using what we are learned internally to build our fee schedule cohort 1 experience, able to implement that to support our LEA. We have 14 LEA. We go to support that, including the large school district and also independent funded charter school. So we offer bi-weekly collaborative in-person meetings to including the leadership from the LEAs and the clinical lead and anyone who are the chair, who actually it is a new project. So we try to help them to identify who bring to the table. So we have from last year, January to now, we have 5 in-person meetings. And we also we have a new assessment, who is ready to move forward, who's confident to move forward. And with our shared experience, by monthly, they learn this is doable. It's realistic especially when we share our first check news. And then locally, a lot of time last year, remember a year ago, people are still like, how we bill insurance, how this is possible, right? So our model actually, we can see a significant increase of interest for our AOEA to reaching out to us. That's why we started the individual technical support. So currently we have our largest school district, Fairfield soon, and also our Benicia, Dixon, Ely, we have 1 charter school, and we also have Vacaville. We've been provide close to weekly or monthly individual one-on-one support to go into what they needed, and then really like task oriented on top of what Caroline provide to them. So here's the topic we are covering for collaborative meeting. So we, like Camden mentioned, because our uniqueness of our school district, and then some school does have the capacity to actually adopting this project, some doesn't. So we want to actually supporting the message we learned from the DHCS capacity grant about the culture shifting, have a large pictures, and also like Michael and then Taylor scope, different perspective to talk about the culture shifting in our monthly meetings. And we also talk about, in the meantime, we also implement EHR internally, so we know what need to be built in and how can we get ready for our school district. We offer the consortium as for, we will build the infrastructure for EHR, and then if they are interested to adopting our EHR, we will have everything ready. So they just need to actually app in and have that process. We can continue to provide the technical support. So that's one of our approach. And we do have 80% of our LES interested to adopting our EHR. For building process, we have learned this process from the day one. We recognize we need to have a building process. Like we mentioned, we are doing building internally. We haven't contract, has no plan to identify a vendor. So we check with DHCS, they actually give us confidence this is doable internally. And we identify the workforce. We need someone to delegate to start building the infrastructure to process billing. So we have our billing coordinator on board this month, and then she's the one actually piloting, work with me closely and Camden closely to submit the claim. And so that's our billing process here. We also will be going to continue to, when LA is ready, we're going to schedule clinical focus on documentation standards. We have policy built-in we have been using for past 3-4 years for our clinical programs meeting the medical standard. We're going to introduce that if the LEA need that support. So we have that manual ready, we have the policy ready. Also, you can see we do have a quality improvement team here. I have one clinician working full-time to building this project with me. So will be a continued effort through the process. So technical support we see are very helpful, especially in person, making connection, building the trust with our school leaders, clinical leaders, and we also including our HR, our IT to speak for the process, how we issues from the day one, what you might need it from the resource mapping to this project. We have our first collaborative meeting starting in January. And then we have 13 LEA as being coming to this consortium model regularly. And then we do, you can see this with the messaging, with the collaborative support, we have 11 of LEA enrolled successfully in cohort 4, and we have 1 LEA enrolled in cohort 3. So we also learned from our Vacaville School District. They are the one, the first cohort submit the claim successfully. So we are very excited to see not just SCO, we're able to submit the claim, and also our LEA is very motivated and able to make that happen this year, 2025. So technical support, so Kim mentioned about, can I take a picture how you provide supports? And we know everyone's schedule is very busy. So there's a model I see is working for schedule half hour regularly with the school lead who is going to make sure the PPA, DUA in place, make sure they understand what need to do for credentialing. So there's a tool we create for a checklist that has 6 steps. So summarize, make sure what's essential every week, every month they need to do. And I have weekly for good 2 or 3 months with 1 LEA, and then they're able to follow the steps. So they are close to have availability or billing claims submitted. They identify, I have 2 large school districts identify December. So that's why we're working toward that goal. So we have the tool checklist, and then like I say, 6 steps. And then it's very concrete. Tell me what to do, what I need to do. And then, so that's why I was working with them, not just email, and also just one-on-one weekly, 30 minutes. And then when we help them to secure the contracting and all the essential thing they need with DHCS, we're moving to meeting with the clinical lead to go over what clinical documentation workflow, the form we have been built. And then, as you know, we are building this with a lot of time. We have weekly office hour to ask those questions, but sometimes we do have our form ready to use. And then, so we have, I also share with Patrick, we have the form and will be in the COP shared drive. So we have those, you can see consent for services, acknowledgement of fee schedule. We talk about communication consent about billing the services. We identify that's called acknowledgement of fee schedule form. We have a standard release information form to exchange release information for clinical services. We also build into clinical intake assessment to identify medical necessity, and also have treatment planning, the frequency of receiving services, and also able to formulate diagnosis in that intake assessment. It's about 10 questions, and then identify able to complete in person or phone 30 minutes. We have a progress notes template built to capture all the therapeutic services, case management, all the services can be captured for fee schedule standards. We also have a crisis screening tool to screening suicide ideation, homicide ideation. And after that, we have safety plan. And then we do have a common screening tool called PHQ, GADs to screening depression, anxiety at intake, and then also at discharge. So we have those actually been using for 4 years in our clinical program. Now we are implementing to our EHR. Will be ready for our LEA. And those are additional tools we've been building to help this process. You can see the first one is a documentation checklist. We have this tool to make sure clinician staff know what's the first thing from referral, when they need to do an intake, and a treatment or discharge. And then there's a hyperlink for the sample of the PDF form, but all the documentation will be done in EHR. You can see another clinical quality review tool. So we are going to emphasizing the quality and standard for clinical services, and also when we dealing with insurance reimbursement, there's fraud and waste. We make sure we monitor that, even though we don't know any auditing procedure or process coming for fee schedule. We want to get ready, make sure everyone's meeting a standard and then for best practice. So we have this clinical review tool we'll be using for peer review, and hopefully we're going to implement soon internally to piloting out, and we can share that tool with LEA. So something we are exciting about EHR. This will be because we are not afraid to change. That's why I say. So when we have product previously we have 3 different EHR, and then we had to kind of find the EHR can work for school-based systems. There's some EHR we use was too simplify, and it doesn't give us the tool we needed. And there's another EHR we use is too medical model. It doesn't fit into our school-based fee schedule. So last year we identified EHR coaxiums able to provide what we needed for school-based, especially to provide analytical report tool and able to help. We can build a phone ourselves, so we can make update as we needed. So I want to highlight this one. So last summer we spent time to meet with the implementation team EHR, and then to learn how to build a phone internally. That's a uniqueness, but same time it's time consuming. But same time we have autonomy, able to make change and update it. It's not you have to send a ticket and take long 3 or 4 months to make update. They also have something called dashboard. We pay us additional costs for the EHR we're using. They will build a dashboard and according to customize the way you need it. So you can see the example here. We can run the range of what service is being providing it. You can see the total notes submitted by activity type. And then we also make sure our clinical team submit notes within 24 hours, because we were learning for first cohort, we're giving 6 months of claim submissions. So we'll make sure for all the process, we will make sure documentation is 24 hours. So you can see there's some other additional information like demographic. We can pull a report in real time. And we also have intake. If not completed, we will have that. So the staff have the dashboard, and the supervisor also have a dashboard. And then program also have dashboard to monitor where's the caseload and what's missing, and also can projecting about there's other report we can using to the quality improvement, quality assurance, also for financial projection. So I'm going to and to Camden to talk about a sustainable funding strategy.
So we're going to speak to some of the braiding and blending that we've done with one of our programs, but recognizing that we're about out of time, want to keep us on target. So we can share that out in the Q&A if you want to come to the room with us. I'll speak a little bit more to that. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll hand it back to Patrick.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Camden and Vera. Really, really appreciate your presentation. I think that the little things make the big things happen, right? And you're talking about all these resources and toolkits and the details. And I know Patrick mentioned in the chat, like putting family communication within some of the toolkits. And Brett mentioned at the top that I just finished a marathon, and I definitely feel that some of this work is a marathon, right? And that we kind of sort of chip away at it little piece by little piece. And so really appreciate you breaking down those different pieces for us so that way we can start to break down how we're going to do this work together. So Karina, if you could go ahead and pull back up the slides. We're at slide 14. Thank you so much. So as a reminder, we're going to be doing breakout rooms into two 20-minute chunks. If you are really excited about one breakout room, you can stay in that room the entire time. We'll just remind you at 20 minutes that you can stay where you're at, or you can head on into a different room if another room is calling to you. You will not be pulled back to the main room in between breakout sessions, so you'll have to make that choice, but each of our breakout room leads can help you with that as well. This was based on feedback from county offices of education. So here are our breakout room topics. So I'll let folks take a look at those. And what we're going to ask you to do is we're going to launch a poll. And to support us in preparing breakout rooms and making sure we have the right number of rooms set up, please take 1 minute to indicate which breakout room you plan on joining when we return from our break. So we'll have Taylor Swift, another great song, I think picked by Vera today, that we will have playing during our break. So go ahead and pick which breakout room or rooms, if you're going to switch rooms, that you're going to participate in. And then once you've done that, you can go ahead and head on into a 5-minute break. And so with that, Karina, if we could go ahead and play the great music to move us through our break. All right, welcome back, welcome back. Hope you had some time to shake it off during your break. And we're going to go ahead and head on into the next slide. We are heading into our peer learning section of the community of practice. As a reminder, we're going to split into 2 sections of breakout rooms, each 20 minutes long. You can stay in one room the whole time, or you can switch breakout rooms during that time. Each breakout room will have a facilitator to guide and document the discussion. And following today's meeting, a summary of the notes are going to be posted on our website to continue our peer learning and networking. And when we come back, we'll ask each room to share out using the Zoom chat. So as you discuss, consider if there is an area of learning you'd like to share with the larger group. And as a reminder, the Q&A will remain in the main room and will start 2 minutes after we're able to get everyone situated into their breakout rooms. Let's go ahead and head to the next slide. Here are our breakout room topics. And in a moment, the breakout rooms will launch. The rooms are self-select. So you'll head to the squares at the bottom or see the breakout rooms launch on your screen. And you'll go ahead and self-select into the room that you are most interested in. If you're having difficulty joining your assigned room, go ahead and stay in this main Zoom room and we will provide assistance. With that, we'll go ahead and launch the breakout rooms.
Questions and answers. All right. Amazing. Thank you, Karina. And thank you, Camden and Vera. It was amazing presentation. Really appreciate you providing such information. And I know, Camden, you paused because we were running out of time. You were going to lift up some of the information that you'd like to carry on. So perhaps since we're going to do 2 cycles, we could start each of these Q&A sessions with handing it back to you to share some of that information where you paused in the presentation. Does that work?
Absolutely. Let's see, let's still share out. So I was just going to speak briefly, kind of giving an example of one way that we've done some braiding and blending of funds for an ongoing program, including where we're going to start weaving in the fee schedule. So I wanted to talk about our school-based mobile crisis program. So we've had it since 2020. It was a Mental Health Student Services Act funded program that we received for 5 years. Because of the pandemic, we weren't really able to launch it until 2021. But it's a 1.5 million annual operation cost. We have 7+ staff. There's some interns that we integrate as well. So we oversee 7 districts, 6 charter schools for a total of 98 schools that on any given day we could respond to. And as I said, originally funded by the Mental Health Student Services Act. So we started during those first 5 years working with our county behavioral health program, billing to Medi-Cal. So whenever we had a young person who had Medi-Cal, we were billing EPSDT for that. Of course, we weren't We weren't seeing the revenue of that. We were helping to generate the revenue for the benefit of county behavioral health, so that we can build their coffers and continue supporting us, which they did very early on. We realized that the need was greater than what we had anticipated it was going to be. So they were able to tap into some of their MHSA dollars to help us to get an additional clinician during those first 5 years. So then that sunsetted. This year, they were able to, so County Behavioral Health was able to step in and fund us for kind of this building year as we start exploring and putting in place our other options to sustain us over the long term. But one thing we started doing this year was billing to the specialized mobile crisis encounter code, which is significantly more dollars than the crisis code for EPSDT Medi-Cal billing. That meant we had to alter our structure. We typically responded with one clinician going out into the field. One of the requirements to receive the specialized encounter code is that you respond in pairs. So that's when we started integrating our graduate level interns onto the school-based mobile crisis team. So they go out in tandem and then hold the case management after the fact. If they're not available, we do have case managers who will go out and support. We've even had our clerical go out and support. She's Spanish speaking, go out in a translation capacity to support our team. So this year, what we've really been doing is we're looking at our long-term sustainable strategy, sustainability strategy, is really looking at a collaborative share of costs, that it doesn't seem fair for solely the COE or county behavioral health or one grant even to pay for something that's benefiting all students across the county. So we've really been looking at what is the fiscal impact to a school, time taken off their school psychologist or their administrator who used to have to respond to these cases. Our local law enforcement, where it used to fall heavy on the SROs. So what would be their share of costs in all the different communities that we support. Are looking at our local emergency rooms and crisis stabilization unit and the cost savings that we've had. We safety plan 80% of the time. So whereas it used to be a phone call to parents, if you need to pick up your kid, you need to take them to the emergency room. We've really been able to settle those in the community so that the young person doesn't have to go. And then looking at insurance companies and how can we charge not just to Medi-Cal, but to the Kaiser, Blue Cross Blue Shield, et cetera, TRICARE. So that's been a real collaborative approach with all of our different partners coming to the table to say how can we share this pie to reap the benefit for our students. We are planning to integrate for our immediate case management that we provide. When that case, so oftentimes we'll go out, the next day we're doing a case management response, sometimes even a couple days later, to ensure that the young person is seen by Kaiser, lands with a therapist or whatever the other family needs are. So being able to build those services to the fee schedule, utilizing wellness coach, our case managers as wellness coaches. We also recently received a PATH-cited enhanced care management grant. We already have a contract with our partnership health plan. And so our intention is with our mobile crisis Medi-Cal kiddos to work with their families to offer even more long-term case management services and then build those to the ECM pot. So that's just one way that we're looking at how can we weave this together to keep a really expensive but impactful program up and running on the long term. Right. Oh, David, I think you're muted.
Look at that user error. That was amazing. Camden, thank you for giving us a picture of your blending and braiding in the background. I just definitely generated some thoughts about the positive impact. But I'll pause there to see if folks have a question they'd like to ask either Camden or Vera. All right, Karen, come on. Welcome to come off mute and ask your question.
Oh, is that Karen?
Yes, Karen, help us out.
Oh, yes, thank you. I don't want to take anyone's turn. Thank you so much. I learned so much about your program. It's so unique and lots of incredible services. My first question, Camden, what is the reimbursement rate for the assessments that you're doing in pairs?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question. Vera, do you know that off the top of your head?
Yeah, actually, we have the contract. Same time, I think we don't get a reimbursement. I think county hold a reimbursement, right? But the reimbursement is pretty high. I can take a look really quickly. But like I said, I don't know if that county specific, the rate, or that's a standard rate for that reimbursement. Let me look really quickly. I'll come back to you.
And then the other question I had was the quality assurance tool. Is that something you guys can share? The worksheet?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yes, I can share that. We have the policy, like I say, we created, we haven't implemented yet. So just want to make sure you're reviewing that's our workflow. The form specifically identify what we will be doing in our EHR. I'm happy to share we have the policy and then also the checklist.
It's a great tool. I really like the one pager. And I know when we did specialty mental health, we had similar like worksheets just to help with the internal auditing. So that's great. Thank you. Those were my questions. Thanks again.
That's great. Thank you, Karen. Great questions. Definitely appreciate that. And I think, Vera, you'll circle back when you have the reimbursement for the dual uh, responders, but we'll circle back when you have that.
Yes.
All right, Matt, welcome. You have a question for the folks.
I do, thanks. Yeah, just curious, so with the LEAs that you are bringing into your system, have you been able to hook, are you having information passed between the LEA, student information system, and your EHR? And have you had success with that or more complications?
Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet. And really we're paying for the EHR access for the first 2 years for those who want to utilize the system that we have. But we're really doing a handoff between Exum, the electronic health record, and building their support system. So we imagine some of them may want to have interface. Exum has had that request from other agencies. We didn't, because our number of students is so small, and we were just able to do like a one-to-one upload. So I can't speak to what's going to happen when that's requested. I know Exum says they're prepared should that be a request, but I haven't been able to see it.
Yeah.
And then did you guys so like with those agreements with the EHR, have you like created an MOU to then tie all that together, or are you just kind of you're doing an agreement to give them access to the EHR, or kind of how is that captured?
Yeah, great questions, Matt. I think we're kind of right where your questions are with that, because we're in talks with our legal counsel and with our upper administration around how does that look, even from the question of do they route through our contract, or are they should we just write off the bat? It's an additional money. If they kind of come through us and Exum is accustomed to us and has built things for us, it is going to be a greater cost if we say build your own contract right off the bat with Exum. And so we're in talks around weighing which one is the best and cleanest way to put this forward to our applicant.
Thanks. Yeah, sounds like you guys are in the same spot as us, so that's great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and just for the EHR, I did ask that question. Like some large school district, they can connect with the school information system. They did tell me, EHR did tell me there's something called information dump. They can set out your frequency to do that. They can do that, but I think they say the capability is yes. But I think once we connect to one large school district to test drive, and then we'll know how that look like.
Great.
And I did find out each encounter.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah, but sometimes, like I said, we don't know is a county specific rate. So the mobile crisis each encounter will be $2,168, and then they also have additional for mileage reimbursement. Yeah, so that's the rate we have for our contract this year.
Well, I was thinking just the positive impact of having that response to settle and support a youth in a place of crisis to prevent them from having to need increased medical intervention. I know at the high school level, oftentimes in my past experiences, when families would have to work with their child being transported, that personal economic cost onto families that's unanticipated became economic hardships where sometimes families would be billed for those services. So I could see that in this environment, it really positively impacts the community when a family and a student's in crisis, specifically a student, that this would really keep a student at the immediate support, calm them down, provide the immediate triage without having them to have to escalate to get those support services. Are you seeing that positive impact that I'm interpreting from my past experience? And do you have lessons learned from that experience?
Absolutely. And I mean, we're blessed that County Behavioral Health has a contract with Medic Ambulance and covers the cost of transport in the event they do have to take an ambulance to a CSU or emergency room. And as there's glitches with all systems, there's been a couple bills that have slipped through to families and seeing their response of how do I cover this thousands of dollar 15-minute trip. And to be able to be like, no, 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 that was a mistake. Let us get in front of that. But we see that reaction, just that only adds to the family stress of the time.
That's traumatic. I know I've worked as a high school principal in a couple different counties, and it's different in every county. And families would be sent exorbitant bills, and oftentimes families in economic situations would not even be able to cover that, and it would put the family in greater levels of crisis.
Absolutely.
Logan, you had your hand up earlier. Do you have a question for our team Solano?
I did, but Camden and Vera have just been knocking it out of the park, so you all answered my questions before. I was going to ask you if you were willing to share your EHR provider, but I kind of picked it up. It sounds like it's Exum, EXYM, right, out of Walnut Creek. Yeah, they awesome. The reason why I ask is because we have, as many have gone through the ringer, kind of shopping around the EHR world, and the idea of them being willing to work with y'all in the customization aspect is not something that we have necessarily heard. It's been echoed a little bit, but it's more so like, here's our plug and play prepackaged systems, and we can kind of shake them up a little bit for you. But it sounds like they've been pretty willing, obviously with money, to be willing to kind of customize for y'all. So that's definitely something that's interesting to us. So for lack of better not having a question, I figured I'll just talk. But yeah, thanks for all the information. Really appreciate it.
All right. Other questions for Team Solano, or things they'd like to share or talk out loud as they're integrating this new learning?
I would love to hear more about the workshops, the bi-monthly meetings that you guys are doing with LEAs. I loved, again, that checklist, and it sounds like that was something that you were going to share out. But just to, Vera, I see you, multiple times a week. We're in the same meetings, and so we're inundated with this information. And then when I'm talking to LEAs about it, sometimes they have a general grasp, and then other times they're just like, can you do this for me? And so when you bring all of them together, I just love to hear about your experience of kind of spoon feeding some of it instead of the fire hose that sometimes we are getting in these meetings.
Yeah, because I notice when there's change, when they know this project work, so they usually, and I think something about motivation interview, not everyone's ready at the same time. So someone's approaching to us, and I think that's a good opportunity, and then to schedule that with them, and then the school district talk too. So once you're successful, they were willing to hear from each other. So the bi-monthly we see it's helpful to put them in the group and have discussion to share success. For my one-on-one, because there's a lot of information we have to compile to give to school district as a large vision message, right? And then so the concrete part I will leave to save to the checklist TA. And then I notice only 30 minutes as superintendents will tell me, Vera, just tell me what do I need to do today? Sometimes we only need me 15 minutes. And then there's time she will email me. I will give them homework. Usually I say, after we meeting, you need to focus on those 2 things I highlighted for you. And let's give you the link. And then the next week we will meet again. And then there's time they say, I haven't able to go to do that. Let me focus on that this week, and we meet again. So it's 1 week, each step they have to do. I don't do it for them, but they're able to come back if they have a question and complete it. And I also become the bridge for them between them and DHCS, because they're kind of really confused about DUA and PPA. And so I will email DHCS, my representative, ask them, do they submit DUA or do they submit PPA? Because LEA doesn't know which one's different. So I become that person to navigate. Okay, you don't have your PPA. Let's focus on PPA. You did submit your DUA. So that's the part. Just kind of like I'm tutor, like we are the tutor for them weekly, and that thing's working so far.
That's great. I want to pause real quick just to let folks know that folks are choosing to swap. If you'd like to, feel free to choose a room that you'd like to be in another breakout room, and or folks might be joining us. It's a great question, Vera. Let's come back to that because I think how you're breaking it down is a nice way to kind of pick up the discussion. As for folks, just again, as a reminder, this is a great chance. If you'd like to be in another breakout room, feel free to self-select through the breakout room selection, and we may have folks join us as well. So we'll just pause for a moment, and we do have some numbers fluctuating. Thank you, Emily, for keeping everyone focused in time. Amazing. Welcome new colleagues joining us in the questions and answers. We've paused to allow everyone to get a chance just to make room and space for everyone. So if you're joining us, thank you so much for joining us in the questions and answers. We paused in the midst of an answer, so we're going to go ahead and pick that response back up. So maybe we can go ahead and restate the part you're answering, Vera, so folks can have a little bit of context. And as folks come on in, we'll also, in just a moment, we're going to hand it back to Camden, and he's going to give a high-level overview around where he paused his presentation around blending and braiding. So before we jump into that part, Vera was in the midst of answering a question around supporting her colleagues in her bi-monthly meetings. So we'll hand it to you, Vera. Thanks for picking that up. If you wouldn't mind restating the question and the answer you're responding to.
Yeah, earlier Janelle was asking the bi-monthly, the collaborative meeting, how we approach that and our strategy. So I was mentioning about what we cover for the update and then summarize a lot of information we learn, and then making using like motivation interview, make sure where each school district are, and then when they are interested approach, or we can check in with, that's how we start with weekly TA and really topic specific, and the weekly, and have that test oriented reminder and then checking sometime between 15 to 30 minutes. Also become bridge for them to confirm with DHCS, with Caroline, what has been submitted, what hasn't been submitted. Yeah, so that has been helpful to able to sort it out why, like step by steps.
David, I have a follow-up question. I know you wanted to go back to Camden.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do the follow-up since Vera's talking a little bit about how she's supporting her LAAs? Is it a follow-up on the same topic?
It is.
Go for it.
Yeah. So you also mentioned that, having IT or HR there is really helpful. Who all do you invite from your COE to help talk to the LEAs to kind of answer those more specific questions?
We have our IT so far to invite it because I noticed our project, we noticed there's a confidential transport portal was required from Ability, and the DUA required IT's lay on eyes to make sure everything is HIPAA compliance, FERPA compliance, and then so we have our IT to be ready to answer questions if they are going to have DUA data usage agreements, and also there's a clinical information about educate our clinical provider. Email is not a secure way to communicate clinical information with family. So, and on this, your email platform is encrypted. So there's a different way, or Google Share Drive, there's a different secure version, the education version versus medical version, mental health version. We just want to make sure. We also learning exchange with our IT, just make sure we have the safeguard. And also working with our IT, there's a different logging for our EHR. So IT there's a safety wall. We need to work with IT closely. So we have the internal experience. So we're getting ready once, for example, like Benicia is our first one, probably will start in EHR. So when implement that, and our IT can share what's perspective, what they need to have in place.
I can add to that. When we first started, we backed off a little bit, but we would meet weekly with IT, our human resources departments, assistant superintendent of educational services, certainly our clinical team. We would bring everybody to the table on a weekly basis, just even trying to figure out what do you cover, what do we cover, what are we not thinking about. So similarly, when we're looking at our collaborative meetings, like who needs to be there in case there's a question that one of us can't field. And we've really started to, what we were noticing at first was that the wrong people sometimes were showing up. We'd be having a heavy clinical conversation and maybe the HR people were in the room. So we've gotten better at communicating out. Here's the key people you're going to want to consider bringing to this month's collaborative, who will be able to have this as their takeaway. So I think we've gotten a little bit wiser as we've gone on and better use of folks' times. And then I always emphasize, and I don't know if this is COEs in general, certainly Solano COE, good food. And it does. I mean, it draws people in. We make it during the lunch hour. It isn't just pizza. You know, we do like the Mediterranean place that everybody loves or what have you. Like the food is a draw for folks, and it's a stressful conversation. There's culture shift and new ideas. And so we always make sure to feed them well. And so emphasize if you have the capacity. I think it does. You're going to get your assistant soups to come on in during lunchtime if they're getting filled a good free.
Oh, building community, right? One meal at a time, sharing lessons learned. So that's great. I'm going to go ahead and suggest, Ken, if you want to talk a little bit about your blending and braiding, that's a great example. And some of our colleagues that just joined, I think, would benefit from having you share that.
So yeah, we just wanted to speak to, we do this across all of our programs. I mean, I often feel like, and this is Michael Lombardo's words, I live 3, 4, 5 years in advance, which can be hard to do when we're on fiscal cliffs. How are we going to sustain all of our different programming? But one in particular that we wanted to speak to was our school-based mobile crisis program that I had spoken about. So it's really a 1.5 million annual program to hold up with all the staffing, mileage, all the different costs associated, legal consultants that often comes up. So it funds 7+ staff and some interns, which I'll talk about in a moment. We have 7 districts, 6 charter schools. So on any given day, we could be responding to a total of 98 schools throughout Solano County. And often people think we would just be heavy in the middle schools and high schools, but really about a third of the time we're responding to elementary school students as well. Just a couple of weeks ago, a 4-year-old who presented suicidal at school in their pre-K program. So this was originally funded by the Mental Health Student Services Act in 2020. We really, because of the pandemic, didn't do our first response until 2021. And so right off the bat, in those first few years, we established an EPSDT contract with our Solano County Behavioral Health. So anytime Medi-Cal student, we were billing Medi-Cal. We hit that mark with the Mental Health Student Services Act, went away. Our county behavioral health, even beforehand. So when we originally built this contract, it was based on pre-pandemic 5150 data from the schools. And we anticipated that we were going to do 45 to 60 responses annually. In our school year 2021, we did 252. So we had anticipated, we put all this training in the contract. What will be the downtime for our clinicians when they're not responding? And that just proved to not be true. We need another clinician ASAP. We were fortunate that County Behavioral Health was able to tap into some unspent MHSA funds at the time to help us hire an additional clinician. And so then MHSSA sunsets. County Behavioral Health said we can fund you for a year. Worked with the Board of Supervisors to get the special approval. Funded us for a year, but said we're going to need you to now lay to rest the EPSDT billing and change your model so that you can receive the specialized mobile crisis encounter code, which is about $2,100 per response that we do. So $2,100 for a 2-hour response, typically around 2-3 hour response, is much greater than we were making before. And then we can still bill to the case management that we and collateral contacts that we may do still under the PSTT. We're just not doing a crisis code under there. But as I said, to get that, we had to switch our model. We used to have 1 clinician respond. You have to have 2 responders go out in the field to receive that code. And so we were, okay, how can we be cost effective in doing that? We can have 2 clinicians respond when we're already at capacity most days. So we started integrating graduate level interns into the program. And so they're often acting as our co-responders and then doing some of the back case management with the families that they meet. So we're really worried about how that would be handled in a school environment where it already feels like we're sometimes in small spaces. But overwhelmingly, the experience of the clinician and the responder and the families has been, no, we actually prefer this model. So then this year, in anticipation of not having county funding next year, We've been building our sustainability strategy. So really looking at a collaborative share of costs. Like everybody who's benefiting from the pie should pay into it. And so figuring out what is a fair cost. So I'm working with some data analyst consultants on addressing that. So for schools, we know that we're giving admins back their time. We're giving school psychologists and clinical staff back their time when we step in and do that assessment and working with the family. Law enforcement, not having to rely on SROs, not having to do transports in the back of their vehicle, not having to make decisions that they're not qualified and don't want to make. We're looking at what should be the shared costs from them. Emergency rooms, we have an 80% safety planning rate in the field. So whereas it used to be a parent saying, child's suicidal, please pick them up. Here's our strong recommendation, take them to the emergency room. That's no longer the status quo across the whole county. It's, safety planning 80% of the time, as I said. If they're getting sent, they're getting sent with very strong 5150 and belief that they're going to need a minimum assessment within the emergency room, but likely hospitalization. And then also looking at how can we not just Medi-Cal, but Kaiser, et cetera, help carry even just some upfront costs of the program, as well as being able to potentially bill in arrears. And so that's where we get to the fee schedule reimbursement. So we'll be doing our immediate case management services. So often the next day we respond with a case management call, and we do additional case management as needed to support the family and their needs. So using the fee schedule under that with our wellness coaches that we have on staff to allow for that. We just received a Path Cited grant for enhanced care management. We have a contract with our partnership health plan. So for those Medi-Cal students, our plan is now to I think it's going to be even greater success for our families that as we close them out of the crisis point, do a referral to, we can provide you ongoing case management for X amount of months to really ensure that all the needs are being addressed holistically. So kind of anywhere we can build in a funding strategy to sustain over the long term. That's what we did with that.
That's great, Camden. You mentioned that you responded to over 200 your first year. Has that trend continued at that high volume?
It has. There was only 1 year that we dipped very slightly below it, but we were on track to trend well above it, near 300 responses for students. And we're on diversion, what we call diversion, when all of our clinicians have been called out into the field. We have to then say, sorry, you have to contact your local law enforcement. Our safe community-based mobile crisis is available. That happens on a near daily basis with us. So we really even need more. We need the program to be even bigger than it is.
That's powerful. Angela, welcome. And you have a question for our Solano team.
Yeah, first of all, great job today. I really enjoyed your guys' presentation. I'm very curious about your mobile crisis team because we are also in a similar situation where we operate a mobile crisis team, but the grant that it currently runs on will be done, I want to say, in the 27 school year. So that perked my ears. So you guys, I just want to make sure I understand it. Your county behavioral health funding is ending after this year?
Yes.
Was that under the mobile crisis benefit or was that under something else? Was that just the MHSA funding?
Yeah, it was MHSSA, and then this past year they used MHSA funds.
Because everything's changing, yeah.
Yeah.
My second question is then you said you were gonna you're finding rates. Is that a charge to the districts that you'll be serving that you're charging them for the services now, or they're gonna be?
No, our intention is we're really coming up with a cost of, and we're analyzing, is it based on student? Is it based on past utility rates? Is it based on the size of the district? But we're coming up with, okay, smaller district, here's how much we're gonna need you to pay. And really build it into your LCAP dollars. And so we've done a lot of making parents aware of this as you're receiving those LCAP feedback forms, speak to this. So build it into their LCAP ongoing, and just X amount of dollars come to us at the start of every year versus billing for the student. But we do then want to be able to go and recoup on top of that where we can, whether it's to the fee schedule, whether we establish, trying to establish relationships with Kaiser, for instance, where can we bill you for when we go out and see your student and at what rate? So it's really a dynamic approach to pull in dollars from multiple places to pay for the program.
As well as the fee schedule.
Yeah. So the fee schedule, I mean, the rates are too low, we think, for the clinical response or even the crisis response codes. But for the case management and wellness coach, I think it's a very viable rate that we want to look at and tap into.
Okay, thank you.
Follow up on that, as you're building that proportionate responsibility with your other providers in your county, have you been able to connect to the volume of response to maybe a potential decrease in the medical communities, like the Kaisers, to see if there's a way you could show them a cost analysis that they are saving dollars by funding this program?
Yeah, that's what we're building right now with a consultant with expertise in that area who's combing our data, combing our electronic health record, and helping us determine how do we tell the story so that they see not just the quantitative impact, or not just the qualitative, but the quantitative.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful. Wonderful. Folks have another question they'd like to share or ask or think out loud. This is our shared space. We have another couple minutes before we'll transition back to the larger group with everyone.
Camden, hi, David. I joined in the middle of this breakout session, so I might have missed this, but that was a great overview and breakdown that you provided of your mobile response team. Is this then, in my mind, it seems like it could potentially be a coordination of care and a continuum of care. So is there capability for your mobile response team to then refer to those clinicians that are under the fee schedule? Is that kind of the idea? So then that way, or those are two separate things and
For
programs?
us, those are two separate things. We haven't explored that. Again, I think there's more cost-effective rates when it comes to ongoing clinical services. But for case management, we're talking about case management. We do feel like our wellness, that's a good rate. If we refer those families and provide ongoing case management collateral supports, I do think that's a win-win for the family as well as for us programmatically. But we haven't looked at tapping them into a more long-term kind of clinician model. We haven't looked at that yet. We tend to help route them back into their insurance or private practice therapists or even school-based clinicians that might be available at their school site. But we haven't taken them on as well.
So then, does that mean the fee schedule under cohort 1 participation, then that's strictly within those case management services offered by the mobile response team?
No. So for us, with our, we have a community school that we operate on our SCO campus. That's where we've been doing our fee schedule billing. And we do one-to-one individual counseling, group counseling, case management, collateral. So that's where we've been kind of getting our feet wet with the fee schedule in cohort 1.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Leslie. Great questions. Thank you, Camden and Vera, for providing such an amazing presentation and response to some great questions from our colleagues in the field. As you can see, we have our colleagues coming back in. So if you're feeling a little crowded, just scoot on over, make sure everyone has a little bit of room. And for the folks that are coming back in, we just restocked the virtual smoothie bar. So please help yourself, get yourself a refreshing treat to be a symbol of taking care of yourself always. So we're going to wait just another moment as more folks come on in to see as we stabilize our community. And hopefully everyone has enjoyed their breakout rooms. We can say that now plural. Folks probably had 1 or 2 breakout rooms, or maybe a breakout room and a questions and answers. So we're so excited you're back, and this is a chance to share out. So if you've had some amazing experience and or thoughts thinking out loud or things you'd like to share, feel free to go ahead and either raise your hand and come off mute and we go ahead and kind of hear your lovely voice sharing, and or you can put it in the chat and I'll read your response. Heather, welcome, Heather. She's going to kick it off. Please share.
So we were in the breakout with Carissa, which was so good to reconnect with her. We were in the breakout on LEA resources and supports. And interesting theme that we connected on was that we're finding that there are LEAs that are starting to want to change their vendors that they originally selected, where a lot of the LEAs selected their LEA bot vendor because it makes sense. They already have a contract with them. It's a low-hanging fruit. But we're starting to see this interesting trend in our county where they're wanting to now explore other vendors. And we just talked kind of about with Caressa too about Sacramento and seeing a little bit of that as well, and some of the reasonings behind it. So it was a really rewarding conversation to hear it's not just San Diego, and just to bounce that conversation off each other. So did I get that? Anything else, Leslie, you missed? Good.
That's
all right.
Love the sharing. Oh, go ahead,
The
Leslie.
only thing I'd add is, since the topic was LA supports, then SDCOEs, the way we have been supporting the
Yes.
LEAs in making these decisions is offering space for them to ask to find out what other LEAs vendors are, and ask them to peer share and learn from each other. So then they could kind of do some pre-vetting before meeting with potential vendors.
Oh, that's great. Another illustration of how important it is to share your experience so we can learn from each other. Thanks, Heather and Leslie. All right, Chris, welcome.
Thanks, David. And we were in a room discussing collection of health insurance information. We began with expressing some exasperation and frustration at the back-end data connection between CBH and payers and local MCP does not solve that problem for us as we had hoped, anticipated. But quickly from there, we just moved into what's important about being able to gain the information, I guess, health insurance information, that is. I guess what really stood at the top, we really talked a lot about building trusting relationships and being in how we might do that. A lot of conversation around building trust with families and just how important that is, and asking for the information. We also talked a bit about how we ask and the messaging behind it. We really should be thoughtful about how it is that we're going to be approaching families with that, and perhaps minimizing the jargon and all the technical pieces, and just give them the why, which I had expressed, maybe just beginning with the lead, like help us sustain wellness efforts, right? That's the main purpose. Anyway, so that's what we talked about.
All right, we have Danielle from our California After School Network post. Great conversation, the wellness coach and expanded learning small breakout. We talked about the implementation cycle, acknowledging that there are many steps to lay the foundation, and noting how long the cycle is until much funding is generated through the claims. In the small breakout, we all noted that the partnership between school day and extended learning has a lot of potential, but so far not extensive application, and wanting to identify models. Thank you, Donnell. Absolutely. Folks are having some experiences in their local counties where they see a great example of that. Please lift that up so we can go ahead and explore some great examples to share statewide. Liz also goes on and says, our group talked about what is an ethical level of standard that we should put together to help guide our LEAs in the ORP process. There was also a lot of conversation around liability concerns for ORP and a desire to dig into role clarity for ORP in different scenarios and models. Thank you, Liz, for lifting that up. Some powerful sharing, powerful learning. In the small and rural, they had a discussion, as Sienna Chambers shares, about the whole class social emotional learning and billing within this topic of medical necessity. Absolutely.
I'm so sorry, David. Sienna, would you be adding in the community? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to raise my hand. More information about some of the topics that were covered in that breakout room?
So we'll
I'm just
include that
curious.
in the notes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Definitely. That's a huge piece, right? Medical necessity and a whole group discussion. A lot of good.
Ties back to what Chris talked about last Friday in office hours. I didn't forget Chris.
I love it. All right. Some other folks like to share? I appreciate in the Q&A just the opportunity, Camden. You shared a lot about your blending and braiding example and the power, the impact of your mobile response unit, and how that has overwhelmingly provided response to so many youth in crisis. I was really surprised about the impact. I mean, unfortunately, there's such a need, but the beautiful impact that you're providing and your creative ways to look at additional funding to support it. And look forward to seeing how you're going to build a creative model with your practitioners in your county to help co-fund future endeavors as your positive impact is helping save not only our students or your students, but also really decreasing the financial impact to other medical providers. And I think that's going to be powerful learning in the future.
David, could I just share out for folks that were not in that room? I was very fortunate that we got to hear Camden and Vera talk about the mobile response team that you have in Solano County. Is that something that Camden and Vera would bring to maybe a future office hours? I felt like the slides and kind of the description was very helpful for COEs when in my mind, I was thinking really around the continuity of care and that continuum of care. And I thought so just putting that out there, David, because we were fortunate to hear it, but I know not everyone got to hear that.
It's a great suggestion, Leslie. I think we will definitely invite our colleagues back to share that. There's a lot of learning in that. Camden and Vera, sound like a plan? Awesome. All right. Well, I'm getting the nudge that we went ahead and just updated our smoothie bar. So please, we're going to need to move on with our event today. This is an opportunity for us to collect your feedback. So Karina, would you be kind enough to go ahead and put up the slide deck for us? We would love to gather your feedback about how your experience in our community practice today. We have some lovely music. We'll start in just a moment, and the feedback sheet is now in the chat. So we'll go ahead and take a couple minutes, enjoy some music, and please provide the feedback so we can ensure our community practice meets your needs. See you in a couple minutes. All right. I'm feeling the excitement of the day. We really appreciate everyone taking the time to provide that feedback. Again, I'd like to just do a quick appreciation for our colleagues, Camden and Vera. Thank you so much from Solano County, providing so much amazing information. Really appreciate you. All right, let's go to our next slide. We are in that time of our community practice to focus on our intentional closure. As we close, we always like to take a moment and have a tradition of looking forward to the coming season. And it can be something that we do every year, maybe with your friends, your family, maybe by yourself, a time to reflect. So this is an opportunity to have an intentional closure about the positivity moving forward and the season. So if you would take a moment to type in the chat, how would you like to spend your season? What activity in the coming season would you like to share? Feel free to put it in your chat. What traditions or stories, holiday family time together? Everyone, well, thank you so much. We really appreciate all of you. We hope you have a beautiful holiday season with your family and friends. Take care, and we'll see you real soon.